Hello and welcome to America Revisited, The Discussion. I'm Philippa Thomas. Over the last few weeks, we've been on a road trip, airing the voices of Americans, not the politicians, regular people across the United States. They've told us how their lives have changed or been challenged during the 8 years that Barack Obama has been president. We've heard from people who lost their homes, who became addicted to opiates after needing painkillers. Black Americans who've told us day-to-day life means being targeted by the police. Also, Americans celebrating gay marriage, and others who say they've been saved by getting access to health services under Obamacare. If you didn't get a chance to hear their stories in depth, we'll tell you how at the end of the show. But in this programme, we're gathering together 5 of the voices from America Revisited. People who gave us their time and their trust, opening up with their personal stories. What's at stake for them in the election next month? That vote that will decide who succeeds Barack Obama. Let's meet our Americans. On the line from the West is Mark Peveler in Las Vegas. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a real estate agent out here. I've been out here since 1983. I was raised in Hawaii. I've been in the military. Having a great time out here in sunny Las Vegas.
I'm jealous. Then Buka Okoye from the southern state of Mississippi. Buka, would you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, I'm Buka Okoye, a student at the University of Mississippi. I am majoring in public policy, leadership here, and I do a lot of work with student organizations across campus. I did a lot of work with the NAACP last year. That's the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
Connie Barone is in the Midwest. She's in Ohio, a state that presidential candidates always fight over fiercely. Connie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi there, this is Connie. I was born and raised in the eastern suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio. I am a professional mental health counselor. I'm a single mother of 2 beautiful girls, teenage girls, and, well, I'm just happy to be here. That's about it.
Well, from Ohio, let's step next door to West Virginia, coal mining country, and talk to Bo Copley. Bo, welcome to our discussion. I want you to tell us, after you lost your job as a miner, how you got your name in the headlines.
Well, after I lost my job, Secretary Hillary Clinton had come to a local town, and I was asked to be on a panel to speak with her. And I asked the question how she could talk about putting a lot of coal companies out of business and then come to where we live and tell us she was going to be our friend when that's what our state is dependent upon is coal, and from that I gained a little bit of notoriety or maybe infamy.
More from you later, Bo. And finally to the East Coast and New York City, we're joined by Amani Al-Khatatbeh. Amani, how would you describe yourself?
I am the founder and editor-in-chief of MuslimGirl.com, which is the largest platform in the United States for Muslim women's voices. And what we're trying to do is to reclaim our narrative in Western media and really just cover topics from fashion and pop culture to current events and politics through the unique lens of our demographic. And I'm also the author of the upcoming book, Muslim Girl, A Coming of Age, and it details the series of events that both I and my family had to endure immediately post 9/11, and that led to me launching MuslimGirl.com from my bedroom when I was a teenage girl. And then ultimately, the risk of having a Trump presidency and what that would look like.
I think we're going to have some lively discussion. We're certainly going to get to know you all a little more as the show goes on. There's a lot to talk about. And let's start, in fact, with race, because I'd like to play you the words of Raheem Buford from Tennessee. Raheem got out of jail last year after serving 26 years for drug offences. He told us in America Revisited how he sees the life chances of the black man in America.
If you're born black in America today, if you're pulled over by a police officer who is white, it's likely that you will be shot down. If you're born black in America today, it's likely that you're going to be poor, you're going to be undereducated. If you're born black in America today, it's a 1 in 3 chance that you will end up in prison. If you're born black in America today, it's likely that you're going to be looked at as the other and you're going to be feared because there is this notion that black men are super violent, savage. If you're born black in America, you're likely to own a gun at a very young age, unless something changes.
That's pretty bleak. Booker in Mississippi, is it too bleak, too pessimistic?
I can't really say it is. I mean, the experience for Black Americans is very different across the board. But in some places, that's what it looks like. Gun ownership at young ages, because, there is a lot of poverty. There are very strong stereotypes that are placed on Black people. There's so much you can do as a Black person, especially in some situations with police officers.
Booker, you told us that there are times you fear for your life because you're Black. How? Is that when you're driving? Is it when you're out on the road?
That comes at a lot of times, but for the most part, that's when I get stopped by police, especially in the past coming years now. I've been stopped this year, more than about 5 times already. I've been driving since I was 17 years old. This is like one of the years I've been stopped the most. Haven't been arrested for anything. For the most part, when you see video after video after video of people getting shot for nothing, you do get scared. You can't help but be shaking when you see an officer pull you over and wonder, am I going to be the next person on a video? Am I going to be the next person having a hashtag with my name on it? That's a real fear for a lot of Black people in America.
Let me ask Mark in Las Vegas at this point. Mark, when were you last pulled over by police, or have you ever been stopped by police? You're on the road a lot.
Yeah, I get pulled over quite a bit, too. It's usually for speeding, though. But I have, in fact, they do have in my wife's classroom, they have a term for it. It's called driving while Black. So it is across the country.
Well, let's hear from the north. Amani, you're sitting in New York City. During the time that Barack Obama was elected, there was this phrase of, we're getting into a post-racial society. But does it seem like that at all to you?
Definitely not, actually. If anything, I feel like for me personally, even just as a Muslim American, I was kind of disappointed to see the way that President Obama reacted to what I see as the modern civil rights movement of our era. I feel like ever since everything really took off with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything, President Obama had the opportunity, especially as our first Black president, to really make a difference. And if anything, I just feel like we have seen a repetition of the same old rhetoric and not really that much of a significant difference whatsoever. And it really just shows that these symbolic wins for minorities in our country, having the first Black president and whatnot, it's a great signifier that we're moving somewhere, but it also is not the end of racism.
You talk, Amani, about where we're moving. And at this point, let me just bring in another perspective, also from Oxford in Mississippi, where Booker is sitting. Writer John T. Edge works at the Center for the Study of Southern Culture. On our road trip, John described himself to us as a white liberal, and then he described another kind of American.
Threaten whites who I believe at their core are good people but are fearful of change, fearful of what they're losing, fearful of the demographic destiny of America. By 2060, whites will be in the minority in this country. 57% of this country will be people of color. There's no denying that destiny, and that destiny is also promise, and I believe in that promise.
You think it's going to be good for America?
Yes, I do. When you look at the long arc of history in the South, long arc of history in America, Obama's presidency and the changes that were made in our country project a brighter future for this place, not a diminished one.
But we're talking about right now about the present. And I wonder, is it fair to say that if you're white in the United States today, you also might be worried about your future? Bo Copley in West Virginia, what's your take on what you've just heard?
Honestly, taking a look at some of the things that have been going on, it's obvious that there's very large racial divides in our country. Whether most people believe in those things or not, it's there, it's evident, and it's pretty hard to deny. But I try to view everything through the eyes of Christ as being a Christian, and I do my best to try to love all my brothers and sisters, everybody that I come in contact with, just because that's what I'm charged to do.
Bo, on our road trip, you talked about people where you are feeling they're the forgotten people, as in working class coal miners in West Virginia. Do you think it's the case for the white working class? Do you think they feel that nobody's really talking to them?
The working class in general, I don't view it as a racial thing. I come from a predominantly white area, but I think we all kind of feel the same way because we feel like we were targeted as an industry, and everything around us revolves around that industry. And that includes every race, every creed that's here in our area. So I don't think it's a racial issue as much as it is just a professional issue for us.
Connie, in Ohio, do people around you talk about race or worry about racial tensions in America right now?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's the same, the same thing. We feel the same here as, we're feeling the tension, and it's scary. And I have to wonder if, just the fact that we have all these cameras and videos now that, it's, we can see things now and we see what's happening right there and every day. So it's like in our face all the time. It's just sad what's happening to America right now, and sad and scary both.
Connie, when you say maybe it's in our face all the time, that really echoes some of the conversations I had when I was driving across the US about whether racism has actually kind of come to the foreground or been more obvious because America has its first black president. I just want to play you all a clip of an interview I did in California. This is with music producer Shelley Berger. He's white. He's a Motown legend. He's been around for decades, and he manages the Temptations today.
I don't remember any president in my lifetime being treated the way Barack Obama is treated in this country. The slurs that would never be said to a president of the United States. You could hate that president, but a senator would not stand up in the Senate and say you're a liar, would not yell out to the president of the United States, you're not legitimate, you're not legal. Let's make America great again. What you're talking about is let's get back to the white man.
Make America Great Again is, of course, Donald Trump's campaign slogan. And Mark Peveler in Las Vegas, I know that notion appeals to you. What do you think he's saying? What does it mean to you?
I would have to disagree with what he's saying. People don't disagree with Obama because of his skin color. They disagree because of his politics. Holy cow. I mean, he's changed our health care to where the average person's paying $41,000 a year when we weren't paying half that before. There's just been so many changes that he's done, and it has nothing to do with his skin. I get really tired of the politics of it. Basically comes down to creation versus evolution, where they want to go the evolution route where everybody has been evolved from some race. And there's only one race, the human race. And politics and government always want to split us into compartments and groups and then pit each other against each other. So we just all seem to play into the government's hand of fighting each other because the government splits us all up. And anytime you take a poll, you have to ask what skin color you are. This whole thing is just so ridiculous. It just infuriates me. And it's just the government pitting everybody against each other to control the masses. And it's disgusting.
Is it ridiculous? Any thoughts?
For me personally, I'm not black, but I think that it is really negligent to say that race doesn't have a factor to play in a lot of the ways that our politics play out. Our racism, our latent racism in our country, our blatant racism actually, is being exploited, especially in this election cycle. And regardless of personal opinions about race or our personal tolerance to it and things like that, it does not change the fact that our institutions treat race differently. It's not white men that are getting shot up in the street. So when we're talking about race and we're bringing up that issue, it's not because, we are trying to create these divides within our society. If anything, it is to eliminate those divides. I think that it definitely plays out as well with having a black president. It's really important for us to identify those differences if we are going to progress as a society. And, I think that this election cycle has really just made a really humiliating joke out of the United States, and it really makes us look horrible on a global stage. Like, think about it. We have a man that is really just trying to take advantage of the most un-American, undemocratic, principles that are harbored amongst Americans, often ignorant Americans. And this man could potentially use that in order to hold the highest power in the world, literally to become the leader of the free world. And it's actually very terrifying. It's terrifying for me to even imagine.
Bo Copley, when you think about who you're going to vote for, do you think about the way they will present America to outsiders, to the people who are listening to you now?
Yes, I do, and I have my issues with Hillary Clinton. One reason why I've never said that I'm going to vote for Trump is he will be the face of the United States. It's the most powerful position in the world. How will we look to other nations if our elected leader is a person who can't control his anger, can't control his temper, can't control what he says at times when he's obviously being baited into say the kind of things that he does? So I do have definite concerns as far as what type of leader he would be, but I also have concerns of what kind of leader she would be. I know a lot of intelligent people that really, really support Trump. So the deplorable type comments and saying that people would be taken advantage of because they're uneducated. There are a lot of smart people who look at Donald Trump and say, he's a billionaire. Okay, he didn't get that way by being an unintelligent person, and he doesn't get that way by being reliant just on himself. So a lot of people view that he will put a lot of people to work, and a lot of people would strengthen our economy by what they would be doing as far as going back into the workplace. And I think that's what the Make America Great Again, I don't think that's a racial kind of statement. I think that is basically we've gone away from being proud of the products we make and the kind of things that we have in our country. And I think that was just a statement as far as to get back to the way that part used to be.
Mark, in Las Vegas, I think you are one of those intelligent people who supports Donald Trump. And you've told me that this election is a struggle for the soul of America. How's that?
Well, I mean, basically, we have a bunch of different cultures. Country is based on borders, cultures, and language. And we have a bunch of different languages and cultures coming in. You have the Muslim faith coming in, a book written by one guy that said he's going to take all these 100 different gods and put them, and we're just going to worship the moon god. And then you have Judeo-Christian, where you have 40 inspired guys over 1,500 years, over 3 different continents that wrote this other book. And our U.S. laws are based in the Judeo-Christian book. Our foundation of our Constitution's based in it. So it's a real soul-wrenching part of America, bringing in other cultures with their different ideas. And it does have a way of pulling at the fabric of America.
So inherently, making America great again means ridding it of anything that means the diversity that we've built upon. There's no official language in the United States. There's no official religion in the United States. It's meant to be a diverse salad bowl of all these different people. And even the Christians that live in the United States are immigrants. They weren't supposed to be here. They immigrated here from Europe. Native Americans were here before them. And, you know, just going by what you're saying, it's never been clearer to me that this is absolutely a fight for the soul of America. Because if this is a reflection of Trump supporters, you know, you saying that Muslims, for example, worship a moon god and they culminated all these gods together to like worship the moon. That is not even factual. Like, that's really not even information. That's not true. It's really ignorant, actually. And the fact that you're saying it, you looked it up on like Google, like you looked it up on right-wing blogs.
I've read the Quran, and I've also looked it up. You know, the information is out there.
I'm a Muslim woman. I've been a Muslim woman my entire life, and I'm telling you that you are wrong, and that you are a reflection of exactly what is wrong with our current election cycle.
You don't know what you're talking
about.
People
are basing their votes on complete misinformation and stereotypes, like exactly what you're saying right now. And this is why it's a fight for the soul of our country, because we are determining who's going to lead our country by who's going to be the most racist, who's going to be the most intolerant, who's going to be basing it on something that's completely unfactual. And it's never been clearer than just by your statement alone. That really demonstrates it.
Let me, at this point, play you all something I heard in Phoenix, Arizona from a Muslim activist, Christy Saber. I met her in her house in the suburbs, and she's got a big locked metal grill across the front door, and this is what she thinks.
Right now, we are at a peak of Islamophobia, and it's actually higher now than after 9/11. Definitely has a part to do with anti-Muslim rhetoric that you hear on the national platform when you have presidential candidates saying they want to ban Muslims from America. It's very hurtful when you hear people saying that you can't be both. You can't be American and Muslim. You can.
Bo, you're a Christian. Your church in West Virginia, I know, is a very big part of your life. Do you think that American values are actually Christian values?
Well, the Declaration of Independence, basically everything. I mean, look at our money. Look at everything that we were founded on. It was founded on God. I believe we should be tolerant of everyone. We should be tolerant of every religion, and I don't think people should ever be targeted because of their religion. At times, we feel targeted because of ours. But I also think that people who leave other countries and escape those countries because of the persecutions they see there, or the things that make them want to leave that country to come to our country, should also want to look at what our country is and why people around the world think our country is great. The further we get away from God, the further we get away from the foundation of what made this country what it was to start with. You know, to me and my faith, without that foundation, we're nothing.
I mean, I would say that, but God, this country was not founded on God. If anything, God was placed in the Pledge of Allegiance as of a couple of decades ago. This country was founded on religious freedom. And that was the whole point of us coming to America as immigrants. And I'm not talking about us as Muslims. I'm talking about us as the first white people that landed on American shores, came here because of that freedom. People were being persecuted. They came here because they saw America as the land of opportunity. Now, if we want to use this moment in our modern history, because we're all like frantic, we're all panicked or whatever, to try to create these divides and exclude people from our country even more, that really does not separate us whatsoever. We're literally just a few steps away from like what Nazi Germany was. And if anything, I'm sorry, just one last thing. If anything, Muslims were here before this majority Christian nation that we have now. Muslims made up 10 to 15% of the slaves that arrived on our shores. They built this country from the ground up. So Muslims have been here from the very beginning. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. And Donald Trump himself is the grandson of German immigrants. So if we're going to have this conversation about immigration and excluding some people from the country or whatnot, we have to have a really honest, frank conversation about it.
Immigration is something we are going to talk about more in just a few minutes. We've asked you all to join in discussion because you are honest and you're all thoughtful. And in a few minutes, we'll talk about the cost of living in America today, about jobs, homes, health, and, yes, whether you think there are too many foreigners coming to America in search of a better life, or whether you think migrants are being demonized. Join us for part 2 of America Revisited, the discussion, after the news. Welcome back. It's now 1 month to the US elections, when American voters decide who should be their member of Congress and who should be their president. I'm Philippa Thomas, and I'm talking with 5 of the Americans who told their personal stories to the BBC World Service as we drove coast to coast across the United States for the series America Revisited. From west to east, we're joined by Mark in Las Vegas and Booker in Mississippi. Connie is in Ohio, Bo is in West Virginia, and Amani is on the line from New York City. Let's look now at America's economy, because I remember it was in crisis. There was that deep recession when Barack Obama was elected in 2008. From the outside, it looks to be in much better shape today. But on our road trip, we were surprised by the number of people still having a tough time just getting by. We've got Bo Copley on the line from West Virginia, where, Bo, the coal industry is still casting off people who've had good, steady work in the mines for decades. Do you see either candidate bringing hope back to your bit of America?
Well, Secretary Clinton has said that she wants to continue some of the policies that President Obama has instituted to preserve his legacy. And a lot of people in my area don't take too kindly to that, because part of his legacy is vowing to bankrupt the coal industry if people continue to use that source of energy. A lot of people where I'm from are very excited by the fact that Donald Trump says he's going to put coal miners back to work. As a concern myself, I'm not into the political games. I don't like people making statements they can't back up. I think one of the things that most people don't like with politicians nowadays, they promise the moon and they deliver nothing. And so when you make a statement like, I'm going to put a lot of coal miners back to work, I want to know how. You know, a lot of people in our area, a lot of the industry people have left. We have people that have declared bankruptcies and have moved out, mines that have closed. So what exactly is his plan to move forward in making it attractive enough that those people want to reopen those mines? Those are the kind of things that I'm interested in seeing come about.
Next door in Ohio, I know, Connie, one of your top priorities is healthcare. You spent, a decade fighting the effects of drug addiction to opiates, and you help other people now who really need access to health services. Connie, it's probably worth reminding people, our listeners around the world, that healthcare can be a really big chunk of the cost of living now, can't it?
Yes, absolutely. You know, with Obamacare, I think it's a step in the right direction. I think that more people are, they have health care now. If you're the lucky 60%, you're part of the ones that have it through their job. But there's a lot of people, more and more people now that are on welfare. But then there's just people in the middle who make too much money to be on any kind of assistance, but yet don't have enough money to buy into the marketplace. So they're kind of stuck there with no health insurance. But as I talk to friends, most people that I know say that it is a step in the right direction. And, there's the ones that are very happy because now they're being covered for medications that weren't covered before. They can afford them now.
Buka, in Mississippi, you're a student. Do you struggle with healthcare costs, or are you covered?
Yeah, I'm covered through my mom. But, again, I do see that there is issues with affordable care. In ways, I do think it's a step in the right direction. But again, there's a lot more to talk about, especially with access to healthcare in general, access to some specialists, access to some other things that come with actually having healthcare. Like if I have healthcare, I need to be able to access doctors. I need to be able to access some medication that I need. And right now that's just not happening.
Let's see if there's a step in the right direction with another really big issue in our day-to-day lives, whether you've got a home, a house to live in. And Mark Peveler in Las Vegas, you told me when I was there some really heart-wrenching stories about families who just had to walk away from their homes, everything they'd invested in them when the economy crashed. Are you seeing the market coming back?
I see it coming back guardedly. Everybody's still apprehensive. They still have the burns from the crash. A lot of people are still renting and just starting to think about committing to purchasing a home. Some have decided not to get into that game of purchasing a home anymore. In the U.S. here, if you purchase a home, you can use the money towards a portion of that money towards a tax deduction, so it makes it beneficial to buy versus rent. But the millennials are more into renting and being free, being able to traverse across the country, and they don't feel they want to be trapped with just being in one place and one home. And I think a lot of millennials feel that they don't want to buy a home. So it's kind of interesting.
If we're talking about life flexibility, getting a home, healthcare, jobs, I guess this is the season of promises, isn't it? You've got candidates for Congress and for the president out there making their pledges. One of the things that really struck us during the BBC road trip was the number of you who'd expected more from your president and in fact feel let down by politicians, full stop. And I just want to play you a short clip from a small town in West Virginia where we met Bill Chafin shooting the breeze in a barbershop.
People has a misconception. The president is a figurehead. Congress runs the country. What should be done? We should put every one of them that's in office now out. There should be a term limit on everything we do. We had a congressman that was in there for years. And if he hadn't died, he'd still been in there. But that's what happens. We keep these older people in there, and they've lost touch with reality. The younger people need to step up, come in. No more than 2 terms.
So, do you want someone who can shake up this system? back to Mark, because I know that you think Donald Trump is your man because you need radical change.
I feel Donald Trump is going to open it up to a freer marketplace.
That might be true. This is Connie in Ohio. That might be true, but I think everybody's putting too much on the president. I mean, it's not, this one person is not going to be able to do all these changes. It'd be nice, and yes, they have some power, but it takes everybody in this country to make a difference. It's not the president. It's not just the president. We all need to come together and make changes.
But Connie, you're torn, aren't you? Do you know who you're going to vote for, Connie?
I'm very torn. I will say I was more towards Trump, but now, he's like a loose cannon. I just don't trust him, and I've never trusted Hillary. And I think if she gets it, she's just we're going to see the same thing that's been going on, the same old. Nothing's going to change, nothing new. So I'm very torn. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Buka, do you have a candidate?
No, I'm definitely haven't really offered with both. The Republican and Democratic nominee have not offered anything substantial to me that I'm going to go out and actually vote for them in November.
So you might not vote?
I mean, I don't know. At this point, I'm really just kind of on the fence. One, the trust of both candidates is out the window. Every week it's either Donald Trump is doing something crazy or Hillary Clinton's doing something very shady. So for me, it's like, if we're going to have someone, again, we talked earlier about like representative of our country and representative of the way we do things. These two candidates are not people I would actually recommend, one, running for president in the first place, and then two, actually serving as our president.
Amani, we've got the two candidates, major candidates that we've got. Are you going to vote?
So I am registered to vote in New Jersey, which isn't a swing state. So it's going to go to Hillary regardless. For me personally, I feel like it really sucks that our election has really come to this, because for many of us, especially for minority communities, like, we already lost this election cycle. I think it's our bodies and our voices and narratives that have been turned into kind of like pawns in this current campaign. And no matter what, like the rhetoric that has been surrounding Muslim Americans has already cost lives. Like on the anniversary of 9/11 this year, a Muslim woman was set on fire in the streets of Manhattan. In September alone, there were a series of attacks against veiled Muslim women, and that's not even counting all the Muslim men and children that were involved with Islamophobic hate crimes. And we haven't really seen a strong push against that from Hillary's campaign either.
Amani, you said you're not in a swing state. So does that mean you might sit it out, or you're definitely going to vote?
I wouldn't say that I'm definitely going to vote, because I do feel like I don't want to be complacent in something like this, where we are stuck between someone that talks about supporting the Muslim American community in terms of having them be more compliant with law enforcement officials, rather than as them being humans and American citizens deserving of their equal rights. And then the hard place is another presidential candidate that says we should ban Muslims altogether from entering our country, and that has been using hate speech to kind of instigate an entire population to vote for him at our
Amani,
expense.
that's the point I'm making. I mean, you're clearly very impassioned about this. Everything you say indicates your disdain for Donald Trump and his politics, but you might not go to the polls.
I might not be, like I said, for New Jersey, I'm pretty sure it's going to be going to Hillary regardless. So if anything, my vote would do better to really vote in my conscience. And at this time, neither one of these candidates has really captured my interest in having them run my country or in deserving my vote.
So Buka, Connie, Amani, you three may not even vote. Bo Copley, will you vote?
Oh, I'll definitely vote. That's one of our great rights as an American is to vote. And I always vote my conscience. I'm a registered Republican, but I never vote strictly Republican. I vote for the candidates based on their choices, their policies, and what they'll do for either my state or my country moving forward, and the people that live here. So I always vote my conscience, and I think every American should vote their conscience. That's the hard part right now. The choices that we have all together, and the Electoral College the way that it is, having spoken with someone from Secretary Clinton's camp, they know they're not winning West Virginia, and they've come to terms with that. They know that Donald Trump will win this state no matter what.
It is interesting that, of course, depending on the state you're in, you know whether it's a swing state, whether the vote is balanced, could tip one way or the other. But in another sense, this could be a game-changing election, because if you look at what Donald Trump stands for, it's pretty radical. You know, his calls, he's dominated the headlines this year, I would say, with his calls to stop Muslim immigration and to build the wall on America's southern border with Mexico. Just want to play you one more soundbite, because Mr. Trump got a really enthusiastic response from a woman I talked to, Carol Rue of the Arizona Ladies Shooting Association. I met her on a gun range just north of Phoenix.
It's too easy for them to get into this country through illegals and even Muslims. I mean, if you look at a Mexican man and he's got his little mustache and whatever, I mean, skin tone, color, and everything, they're similar to some of the Middle Eastern men. So it's easy for them to pass as Mexicans, possibly. It's just easy for them to get into this country. Make them build the wall between Arizona and Mexico.
And I think we should tighten it.
There's your cheap labor.
Amani, how do you feel when you hear that?
If someone hears that and they aren't just like completely brought to hysterical laughter, then I think that it's just really symptomatic of the culture in our country today. You know, she really is the quintessential Trump supporter. It really is. You know, like Trump is really energizing this racist base. You know, even just from the things that she's saying, where she's equating all minorities to be, you know, one and the same. Mexicans have little mustaches. Oh, they're cheap labor. Like, you know, it's kind of like we build our country on the backs of our minorities, and then we have no problem on them. And I think that's something that is really devastating, and it's going to cost us. It's going to cost us as a society.
Mark, as a Trump supporter, that doesn't mean, of course, you endorse everything that's said and the way that it's said. But is illegal immigration, is the notion of having to build a wall something that chimes with you and your friends?
Well, my daughter lives on the border. I have other relatives that live on the border, and it's a whole different world down there. There's gunplay all night long. The schools are being inundated by illegals that are coming to school because the school district has to, if they come to their school, they have to teach them, but they're not part of the tax base. It's crazy. And then you got the whole drug side going on with all the different tunnels going underneath and everything else. So that's why there's a lot of gunplay down there in all the border towns, because of the drugs and all the stuff that goes along with it. It's crazy.
For me personally, I just want to say that the gunplay that I'm more concerned with is the mass shootings that are taking place across the country. Mass shootings have claimed 10 times, not even 10 times, over 100 times, according to Time, more lives on American soil than terrorist attacks in our country. And yet we are focused so predominantly on these outsiders, these terrorists, when really the biggest perpetrators of mass killings on American soil are white males shooting up cinemas and schools.
Well, you know, that's a bunch of garbage. We had over 3,000 shootings.
Statistically backed up.
We had over 3,000 shootings in Chicago, and that wasn't all white males shooting theaters.
Connie, you're in Ohio. It's sometimes called the bellwether state. You know, how Ohio goes, so the country goes. How do people react to talk of building the wall?
I think that's ridiculous. You know,
or ridiculous to build it.
To build a wall, yeah, that's just ridiculous to me. But on the other hand, I think people should, if they're going to come to this country, they need to do what they need to do to become a citizen, you know, or they need to follow the rules. You can't just come here and live here. You've got to do what it takes to become American if you're going to come here. And then the wall is kind of ridiculous to me. I'd rather see us with bridges.
What does it mean to do what it takes to become American?
Well, I mean, they need to, do what they follow the rules. And if you're gonna come here and you want to apply to be a citizen, you need to do that correctly. You need to pay taxes. You need to do what we're supposed to do. You can't just come here and not pay taxes. And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying they shouldn't be here illegally.
But
pay taxes like Donald Trump hasn't done. Buka.
Yeah, I just, for the most part, one is like you continue to say that like to be American is to pay taxes. And I mean, we just had Donald Trump tax returns get leaked. And he's not paying taxes for the past 18 years, or it's suggested that he's not. And then on top of that, we just to be American means to be like a certain way, or to act a certain way, or to do certain things. But then you're not taking into consideration some of the desperation some of these families had to face and had to undergo just to cross this border in the first place. And that you have 11 million undocumented in this country. And that what you're asking then is that 11 million people all of a sudden go and try to come out from where they are, announce their status as undocumented immigrants, and then try to apply for citizenship. I mean, it's just impractical, number one, in the first place. And number two is just that takes a lot of courage to do. And to continue to refer to, these people as illegal. People are not illegal. It doesn't matter if they came into this country in haphazard ways. I mean, you don't call people legal. I mean, if you're drinking alcohol under the age of 21, you won't call that child illegal. They're just doing something that may or may not go against the law. But at the same time, to continue to refer to these people in a derogatory way.
Bo, what do you make of this? Where do you stand here?
Well, I mean, the simple fact that we have processes in place to become, quote unquote, a legal U.S. citizen, which means you are becoming a citizen, means that if you don't do those things, you are actually illegal in what you are doing.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes.
And a lot of people have that. That's the thing that a lot of people are looking at is, if I have a brother-in-law who lives in Florida, who is a Muslim, he's from Jordan, he's a Jordanian man. And I love my brother-in-law very much. He has lived in Jacksonville, I don't know how long now, but he came to this country the way he was supposed to. He followed the procedures, came to the country legally, and has become a naturalized U.S. citizen.
But again, you're not looking at how borders work. Well, especially looking at the Mexican border that is connected to the North American continent. You just said that your friend came from Jordan. That is a continent that's somewhere else, that they had to then go about applying for citizenship in legal ways, having to pay certain fees.
Those legal ways still apply to the people that are on the same continent.
Those who are coming from that border, those who are coming.
What makes it different?
What makes it different is one that it's on this same continent.
It still has its border, though.
Well, I'm not. We're different countries. I'm
not saying open borders or free borders, but I'm saying is that in situations of desperation, where people are coming into this country because of desperation or because of economies or because of situations that disallow them from, being able to be citizens or flourish in other countries, and they come here, is not that we're supposed to demean them or to say that they are illegal or not belonging, but we're supposed to try to figure out paths to citizenship, like Obama has been trying to do for the past couple of years now, to totally deny them citizenship or to say that they shouldn't have a chance at it.
Can I put to you all listening to you, I feel like there's a struggle going on about what does America stand for? How open should America be? How many people should America welcome? And I wonder if I can get some thoughts for you about what you think is the big question that this election should settle. Amani.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to immigration, there was a report that just came out saying that half of the world's population of refugees currently lives in 10 countries. 10 countries house half of the world's refugees, and there are a lot of refugees. And obviously the United States is not on that list. But the thing is, for example, the top country in the world housing refugees is Jordan. Jordan is smaller than the size of New Jersey, right? So I think that for us as the United States of America, especially with our resources and, especially with, the role that we've played in the Middle East that has prompted these problems that are now coming home to roost, that have caused all these issues to kind of like spark up and really take shape in this way, I think that it is our responsibility to be taking in refugees and trying to set things right.
Mark Peveler in Las Vegas. What's the question that for you has to be settled at this election? What's the burning issue?
I just want our country to be productive again, be able to have a freer market, make it easier for people to run businesses, make money, exchange. I like the idea of Trump being able to at least talk about reducing NAFTA. It's almost 24-inch page document describing free trade, which is not free trade. We've seen so many companies leave this country for cheaper labor and less regulations. And I would just like to see it come back where we can actually have an economy.
Booker in Mississippi, what matters to you more than anything in this election?
Well, in this election, I think that our discussions around xenophobia, our discussions around immigration, I think that's going to be one of the key factors and key roles that the president's going to have to play. And I think just the status of refugees in general, what is that going to look like for our country, especially with the Trump presidency, who's someone who has explicitly demeaned people living in Mexico, who is totally has suggested banning Muslim citizens from entering, Muslim residents from entering this country. You really wonder then, especially with the status of things going on in Syria right now, how are we going to be the country that plays a role in inviting and being a welcoming country to those people who are in need elsewhere?
Bo Copley, you've told us you are definitely going to vote. You always vote. What's going to be uppermost in your mind when you go to the polling station?
Well, as I said before, I always seek guidance from God in the voting process, and I know everyone doesn't have the same faith and the same religion that I do, but that's ultimately who I feel that I have to answer to, and so that's where I seek guidance from. But I want to see our country come together. I'm tired of seeing so much divisiveness in our country.
I totally agree.
One of the key aspects of our faith is Jesus Christ, and He died for everyone. He died for everyone on this planet, regardless of race, creed, nationality. I would like to see our country come together as people who can love one another and live with one another, but work our problems out in ways that aren't, some of the violent ways we've seen, some of the argumentative ways. I know arguing is a good part of being able to work things out, but it seems like nowadays this election is set, and it has been for some time. We have people on the far left, we have people on the far right, and we need someone to be in the middle that can work with both sides.
And Connie, I'm feeling you nodding.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. I totally agree. We need a fair leader. We need people to come together. We need communities to come together again. We need a president who is going to just work towards this terrible racial divide we have in our country, and we just need to be a country that is looked at as a helping, fair, just back to just somebody who can be on both sides and bring us together again, just like Bo said.
Well, there's more from you all and many other voices in our series of 3 programs on the road across the United States. It's available as a free podcast online if you go to this address, bbcworldservice.com/Inside America. No spaces between the words there. It's just bbcworldservice.com/Inside America. I'm Philippa Thomas. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to the 5 of you for making America Revisited the discussion.
There are dozens of different podcasts now available from the BBC, including news, documentaries, science, business, arts and sport. For details of them all, go to bbcworldservice.com/podcasts.